Yeah. So we are going to discussing today also a couple of SaaS procedures. Yeah. So the first procedure that we are going to discussing is export and import. So these are the two important procedures. Like like what we discussed about like in the data in previous classes, like we discussed to read the data by using the data step like in file statement, read the data from the text file, right? And similarly to write the data we use a file statement. But with proc import and proc export, these two procedures is majorly used to import the data, the .xls files, database files. Like dot database is nothing but Microsoft database, Access database. If you want to import, if you want to export to those files, then these two procedures is majorly used. Like because through data step, you cannot you cannot read the files, the XLS, and you cannot read the Microsoft Access database files and Lotus Notes files. But with these two procedures, the proc import and proc export, you can read whatever the type of the Excel file, whatever the type of Access file, all those things you can able to read it. So if you are using the Windows environment, so without writing the code, you can import it and you can export it. But if you are using the Unix environment or maintenance environment, you have to write the code and import and export the data. Let's see how you can do that without writing the code with the Windows environment. So once you open the SAS, so there is a file menu here at the top. In the file menu, there you can see import and export, import data and export data. So these are the two options. These are the two options that we can use in here to read the data, or to import the data, to export the data. If you are using the Windows SAS. So let's try with the import first. Okay, before that, so there are two additional softwares required. So if you want to import the data from the XLS or Microsoft database, let me show you that. You can see here. So if you want, if you want to import or if you want to export the data, you need two additional softwares. If the file is like an XLS file or Microsoft Access database file, because without these two additional softwares, you cannot import, because those Excel and Access, these considered as databases, not like a flat files, raw data files. This called as database files. So whenever you are going to import the database files, any database, not only Excel or Access, whenever you are going to importing or exporting to any database file, you need SAS Access and SAS Connect. These two additional softwares are required. If you don't have these two softwares, you cannot read it or you cannot export it. Okay, so SAS Access and SAS Connect. So the SAS Access is majorly used to access the data between the environment. So whenever you say between the environment, means between the Oracle database to the SAS environment to Oracle. To interface the data between to access or to upload or download between the databases, you need access and connect. Suppose if you have access, you can't do anything, because until and unless if the SAS connect is there, then you cannot access the data. Because to access the data, you need to have SAS connect. So SAS connect majorly used to establish the connection between the databases, between the SAS and an engine to the different databases. So once you establish the connection, then you can try to access the data. So without connect, you cannot access the data. But without access, suppose if you have access, we don't have connect, it's not working. It means you need to have two additional softwares. So now I'll ask one question, like, how do you know what are the different modules that you have access, different licenses that you have in your system? So because now I'm saying there are additional access and additional connect separate modules are required. How do you know that you have art or not? If you have access or not, how do you know that? Right? So to check the access of the particular software is installed there on your PC, then you have to use, yeah, just run this particular SAS procedure. Then you will get to know all the details. What are the different SAS? You can see. You can see this. When you run the proxat and INT, set INIT, you'll get to know what are the different product that you have installed in your laptop. Means you have access to this particular software that you purchase license, and also it will give the expire of the license. Okay, see who is the owner of the software, whose site number, expiration date, grace period, warning period, birth date, and operating system, and products expiry dates. So these are the different products that you have installed in your laptop. Means when you install the SAS software, suppose if you are working in a particular client level, if you run this particular procedure, then you will get to know what are the different products that you have. Maybe if you're using the online SAS online edit online, you'll have all the information, but that need to be, suppose if you connect the database, that you may not, maybe the SAS is not going to support that at the time, right? So you have to connect some additional database, that's separate access required. So maybe you can have access, but you cannot connect to database, they will restrict it. Only for this practice point of view they can provide, but you cannot work any kind of thing in online. So but here you'll get all the details. See, I have the product, base product. This is a base product is a common. So like nothing but whenever you purchase a SaaS, nothing but you'll get the base product minimum. Suppose if you have SaaS means you are accessing the SaaS means you will have base. Whenever you say base means by default you'll get the proc SQL and SAS macro, SAS ODS, all this by default you'll get that. Because these base and advanced SQL macros all comes under the base. When ODS, let's see. Suppose if you don't want the graph, you don't need it. You can drop it. So these are some additional software I have. But see, I have access. I have only connect, but I don't have access software. See here, you see the products, right? So base SAS access. So SAS connect is there. Even though this is a SAS access is a help only, but it's not like access. I don't have access, but only have just a documentation. We have it, but it's not. I don't have access to connect to any database. So it means I can only access only .txt, .csv. I cannot connect to any database. I cannot connect to access any data, access Excel files, or I cannot access to any CSV, any like the Microsoft Excel files, access files. Only I can able to read it .txt, .xl, .csv files. Okay. So with this reason, I cannot connect to any database. I cannot read the Excel file. So when you this also you'll get to know that when you open the file, import data, you can see here. When you have access, you can see the multiple options here. But I currently I don't have any access software installed. So with this reason, I don't see any additional options. Suppose if you have if the both the softwares are installed, then you can see .xls, .data, database files, all the things here. Okay, this is importing I'm doing, right? Let's do the cancel. When you do the export, so I'm just exporting this data set. Next. Next. So these are all the databases. See, you can connect to all these different databases if you have access. You connect. But depending upon the database, suppose if you want to connect to Oracle, to connect the Oracle, you need a username, password, and path. Path name is which database is under the Oracle you want to connect. Like this, you can see this. So what are the options that you can see? The same option you can also see that when if you have additionally installed of those two softwares in the when you are importing or exporting. So these are all the different databases that we have. So SPD, SAS, STS, stats, remote. You want to connect a remote, server, password, path, all the things. Okay. Now let's go to the import and export. The first one is import. So our aim is to import the data. What kind of file that you're going to import here? Because you don't have much options here because you don't have software. So you have only three type of file that it's accepted here. So it's if you want to use a different format, you can do that. But if you have standard data source, if you want to select it, it's it. So when you select delimiter, when you select the delimiter, just it will ask what kind of delimiter you will have it. Let's see this. So when you do the CSV, just when you select the file, you will get the options here. So what kind of delimiter that you are going to select? If the file is D space or if the tab or the character or hexa value, all things. But since we already selected only CSV file option, because see here, okay, initially we selected delimiter, right? So then you have to specify the what kind of delimiter here. So we have to specify the delimiter. So you can specify the what kind of a delimiter here, character. So when you enter the character, automatically the hexa value will be changed. Suppose if you specify the star, the value is changing. You can see 2a. Similarly, you can see means it automatically the hexa value will be updated. So if you know the exact hexa value, then directly you can enter it. Or by default space, you can tab. You can select it. But if you want any other delimiter, you can enter here. So that is one thing. And here, get the variable name from the first row. It means in the text file that you are going to importing, in that particular file, you have the header. If you don't have the header, means you can skip this particular, you can uncheck this box. So when you uncheck it, so from first record onwards, it will start reading the data. Okay, so this is the one thing. Now, since we have the header, then we can select it. So the number of rows you want to import to export. So it will specify the G formats. It will take all the rows. So when you click OK, it will import it and go to the next. So when you're importing the data, you want to save that file in your SAS environment. Where do you want to save? in which library you want to save it. See, if you are connected to any database, you can directly save the file in that particular database through library. But if you not connected to any database, just use the C file and give the name what you want to. Since we are importing the data and you want to create the data in a particular file like ABC. Next, browse. So what exactly this option will tell you that you are importing the data and right, but backend the code will be generated. That code you want to save it because there is a code to be generated whenever you are doing this particular process. The code also will be generated in the backend. You want to save that particular code. Just specify where exactly you want to save it. Just save. So if you check this box, it means it's you already have the existing file. You want to overwrite it. You can replace the exist file if already exists. So once you enter the name, just click finish. Then you can see. Go to the C file. What is the name? ABC. See the data. See. So this is how the data will be look like. Now let's go back to the what exactly the code is generated in the backend. So this is the code it's generated, right? See, it's same as proc import procedure. So this is about what, suppose if you run the same code here, if you run the same code, you will get the same output. Whatever the things that you did that, it will also do that. So because since it's a Windows environment, you can able to do that. But if you are using the Unix environment or mainframes, you cannot do this kind of operation, right? So you have to write the code and execute it, and automatically it will import the file. Okay. See, this is now let's look at the syntax here. Proc import. So you have to specify out. What you specify out means you want to save the data set. You are importing some file and creating the data set. Where you want to create it, the data set name you have to specify in out. And what is the file that you are importing? So what is the kind of database this particular file is dealing? Since it's a CSV file, the delimiter is a delimiter. DBMS equal to delimiter. So in complete this particular proc, either in proc import or proc export, the DBMS option is very important because the DBMS option will tell you that what kind of file type that you are going to importing. So the DBMS option you have to use this identifier. Suppose if you specify access, the file read in these type of versions in access. So in either in proc import or proc export, the DBMS option is very important. If you are not clear, if you are not specified a correct DBMS option, you will get the error. So the file will not import properly or file will not export properly. It means that what is the file type that you are importing, what is the file type that you are exporting. That file type you have to specify here. So you have access 97, access 2000, 2002, CSV. So we just see this CSV file. So we just specified here CSV, right? So not DLM. So when you specify delimiter means what kind of delimiter that you have. Default delimiter is blank. So but here we specify a delimiter. What kind of delimiter that you specified? 2CX. 2CX is representing the code of the particular delimiter. That now we saw that the exact value of the particular code. Suppose if the file is exactly CSV, directly you can specify that, then delimiter is not required. If you are sure 100% that is a CSV delimiter, directly specify it. But if you are not clear, just specify the delimiter, what kind of delimiter is the deal. Now let's get names. Whenever you say get names means if the file contains the name of the variable names and the data row starts from second. Okay, so this is the default one. So any questions here in the proc import one? Is that clear? So this particular process is important. These two import and export. These are basic procedures like comes under. It's not like complex one. It's a basic one because you have whenever you receive the client data, some small data set in Excel file, you want to read it, and because suppose let's say this, you are generating some report. That report need to be generated with this particular product codes, or groups, or clients, only specific to these 100 clients. So what you have to do? You have to read those 100 clients and load it to the database and use the database table and create the report. So in those type of scenarios, this will be useful. Suppose you have some hundred of like 1,000 records, you got it. Instead of copying all those 100 records and manually entering that, then you can just read the data and create a data set at database level. Okay, so this is about the proc import. Similarly, proc export. Let's see this proc export. So when you say export means you are exporting the existing SAS dataset that you have in your system, right? Whenever importing means you have some file in outside the SAS, you're taking that file and creating the dataset. When you say export means you already have the dataset and you're exporting something. Means first you will get the which dataset, you will get an option like it will tell you that which dataset you are going to import, exporting or like that. So choose the library A, B, C or whatever the dataset you want it. Okay. So write the variable labels as a column names if you want it, but yeah, not required here. Then next. So when you specify here and when you go to the next one, you are importing the SAS dataset and they are exporting to where, to what type of file that you are exporting. You have to specify the type of the file. Suppose if you have the database, you can see the database details here. If you have access and all those details, and specify that so delimiter file. Go to the next. So where exactly you want to export it? So it's specify the location. So delimiter. What kind of delimiter that you are going to do that? abc.txt. Save. So once you select the ABC, then you have to we are not choose any delimiter, right? You have to choose the delimiter here. What kind of delimiter? We specify the character. What character you want? I want to set as a star. I want to export the data in a star delimiter file. First row. Write a variable name as a column name. Write a variable name as a column name. So you want to see only the variable names, or you want to see the labels. You want to see the no column names. Then click OK. Then again, when you click the next, either you can click the next or you can click the finish. So when you click the next, again same, it will ask the location where exactly. It will also generate the code in the backend. To save that code, you want to specify the location in. Save. So you can check if the file is already existed. Just click next, finish. So go to the location. This is the program it's generating. This is the file it's generating. So this is the file. It's a star delimiter. Okay. So the code it's generated, what is the code generated back, and you can see that. See similarly. Export cd out file. So you're exporting means whatever this data that you're exporting, whenever you're exporting you have to specify the data, but whenever you're importing you specify out equal to out file data file. See the difference between the specification dbms replace delimiter those are, whenever you're importing it will get names, whenever you're exporting you put names. It's the same. So only this you have to remember the syntax. So this is how you have to it will work with the importing and exporting. So these two processes it's a you have to remember everything here, whatever we discussed. So any questions on these two processes? We'll move to the one if no questions. Good. Okay. Yeah. So then we'll go to the next procedure. So that's called as a data sets. So this data sets procedure, this is also majorly used for combination of multiple procedures. If you may require set of things you want to do that for the particular data sets, you can use this data sets procedure. So let's say example, I have two data sets or two files. What you can do with these two files, right? So what are the different actions that you can do? What are the different things that you can do with these two files? So first thing is you can append these two files. Second one is you can delete those two files. The third thing is you can modify those two files. Fourth one is you can rename the files. Fifth one is you can rename within the table level. You can column name. You can rename the column names from the table. And sixth one is you can copy the files from one location to another location. Right? It means if you have more than one data sets, there's many actions that you can do with all the data sets level. Right? So like there are some other things also there. Suppose if you are going to the index level, you can create an index on each data set level. You can modify the index. You can delete the index. So all the things. See, you can see the content of all the files. You can see what are the info. You can see the contents of the particular each and every data set. So it means these many action items that you can do with one more than one data sets. Even single data set also we can do. Means the data set provision is very powerful compared to all other procedures. You can do so many action. You can do so many actions. You can do so many things on these data sets. So let's look at one by one here. So the first one is removing all labels and formats in a data set. So what is mean by labels and formats? So nothing but in a particular data set level, you will have the variables. These variables you will have the labels, nothing but description of the particular variable. I want to remove all the labels to the particular data set level for all the variables. And I want to remove the format. Suppose you create a dollar format, comma format, and apply some user defined form. All the format that you have it. I want to remove whatever the format that you have. You have to remove all those formats. So let's take this example. So this is a format we have created for this data set. I'll explain you that because this particular browser we are not gone through that. But exactly because yesterday we discussed a few minutes, but yes, I'll explain about this particular browser. Now we have recreated the format. See, so when you run the proc format, there is a separate catalog has been created here. If you go to the format here, what are the names that we created? Class format. Sorry, not here. The work location we create. See, class format. If you see, it will do that. Cannot open here. You have to use other again some SAS browsers. So the format has been created. Now I want to apply the same format to the dataset level here. Now I just created applying the format. Let's look at the class dataset here. See senior and fresher. We created the format. One is senior and freshman, 1 and 2. The Z. So we have the labels. Let's look at the dataset here. So view the proper columns. So you have the label and you have the format. So our intention is I want to remove all the labels and formats to this particular dataset. With the SAS browser, dataset browser, you can do these things. So with the proc dataset select, let's go to there. So whenever you're using the proc datasets, you have to specify the library. It means you are going to do the some action on the particular dataset. Where exactly this dataset is located. If it's a work location, you don't need to specify it. Other than the location, you have to specify it. But if it's a work location, it doesn't matter anything. Now I want to see the content. I want to see the content of the particular dataset that we created called class. Just run. See. So since it's a live datasets are there, you have to specify the library. Yeah. Sometime it will work. Okay. So why we got the error means we need to specify that particular data set. So because in the class is a data, right? So we have to use the data equal to option. So the next one is we just saw the proc content. Now let's look at copy. So because we use the proc content processor and we use the next one is proc copy. So it means at a time you can do all the multiple SAS processors, multiple actions at a time you can do that. But in previously we have individually each and every processor separately we have to do. Suppose if you want to see the content, we have to write the proc content. If you want to see the proc copy, you have to write the proc copy. So you can also do the same and all these actions at a time in this particular data set. So when you say copy, what is the syntax? What is the use of write? So means whenever you say copy means copy from one location to another location. We know the location from input, that is called work location. Where you want to copy out equal to. So C5D is the library, we have it already. So C5D. So for proc dataset, you have to use a quit statement, not like a work run. You have to use a quit. Let's run it. Go to the log C. So content has been created and then dataset to C5D has 4 observation file datasets. See, so all the dataset has been copied. Whatever the dataset that you have in the work location, all the dataset has been copied. So if you want to select the datasets, select those. Only that particular dataset will be copied. So previously we have all the dataset. Now you can see here only one dataset has been copied. So this is about how we can use a content copy. Similarly, you can use append, right? All these actions at a time you can do that in a prox datasets processor. Now to delete the dataset also you have to use library delete class. So from this particular library work location, the class dataset will be deleted. Say deleting the SAS dataset. Now you don't see that particular dataset. But this is very powerful processor. So in delete is a very dangerous, so you have to use it. You can see here whenever you are running the processor, by default you are getting all the information that are there in this particular library directory, where exactly it's located, physical name, file name, all the data sets when it's modified, what is the size. So by default you will get all the list. Suppose if you have thousands databases, 1,000 tables, you can display all the 1,000 tables. To suppress this output, you have to use no list. So that kind of output it will be suppressed. See, you don't see anything. But previously when you run it, you have all the details. Okay. So any questions still now in the proc data sets? Yeah. So next one is now our aim is to remove the labels and formats, right? To remove the labels, you have to use a modify statement. So you have to use a modify statement. I think class dataset were deleted, right? So I'm going to recreating that dataset now. So modify. What dataset you are going to modify? I'm going to modify class. So what modification you are doing that? So you have to specify attribute. I think I have to use attribute. So what you are going to changing? Whenever you specify the attribute, you want to remove the label on it. So when you specify the attribute all, if you specify all, it will remove all the labels for the particular data set. Label equal to replace nothing but you are replacing values with a blank. Now let's run this. modify successful. Let's look at the data set now. Class. Let's look at the labels. See, do we have the labels now? All the labels has been gone. Similarly, you can use the format. I'm going to changing the format name. So I think it's not working. Yeah, maybe it's not working here. But yeah, even though if we are getting error message, it's gone. So actually, this is a correct syntax without equal to. See, but maybe something is not correct. So this is how you are removing the labels and format. Means all the attribute information that you can overwriting with the modify class. So this is only one single data set that you can modify individually. So manipulate the SAS files. So just now we saw that, right? Like change the name of the copy the SAS files, delete the SAS files, select the file, copy, exchange the name of the SAS files. So now exchange. What do you mean by exchange? When you say exchange means names one data set will name data set to other. So exchanging the names from the content will be same. The name of the data sets will be exchanged. Change. So it means weight equal to body weight. So exchanging. So weight the data set of the content the weight content will be moved to body fat moved like this, changing the name. Change. So this particular data set name will be changed to post drug. Deleting, copy, select, copy out, all these things. So when you say move, so what is the meaning of move? It means it's not completely moved. In the source, the data will not be present. Directly it will be there in the data set. It will be removed from the source and will move there. Nothing but control X and control V. When you say copy means control C and control V. So that is about whole. So this is a saving the SAS files. So, yeah, so the modify the SAS dataset is important here. So just now we saw only one particular modified one data set. The one data some class data set you are modified like from remove the labels and remove the formats. So you can do anything like you can create one model, you can create the label, you can put the password. So when you say read equal to green, nothing but we are we are putting the read permissions. Whenever you are trying to open the data set, it will prompt the password to the particular data set to read the data. You have to enter the password. So that how you can create the password for the data set means you have to use read equal to. Modify the data set name and variable read equal to green. Read is nothing but a permission, read permission, and green is a password. Sort by name and index value, format, label, modify oxygen. So renaming the data set. In the oxygen data set, we are renaming oxygen variable. When you say rename means variable. To change the data set means we use exchange. To change the name of the data set means we have to use a change. To rename the variable, we are use a rename. To change the data set name, we have to use the change. To exchange the data set name, we have to use exchange. So you should not confuse all these things. So are you following? Any questions that you have? We are confusing. That's the reason yesterday I didn't cover this topic. So today I'm just taking so because it's take time. So any questions till now? Okay, so there are the four different things. First thing is a rename. When you say rename means rename will be used only at the variable level. The next thing is exactly particular object. You can rename only particular object within the data set. The next one is change. When you say change means the existing name will be data set name will be renamed. Like suppose if there is a data set called class, you want to change, you want to give the different name. So class, student class. So means we have to use a change. When you say exchange means there are two data sets, the name will be exchanged between these two data sets. And then, okay, these are three things. So the rename can be used at the data set level. Okay, that and some exchange will be used at the data set. Within the data set, you can use like this, all the thing, modify and label. You can put the label. So describing the data set, when you say describing means you have to just use the content one. Describe. So since the data set has been password protected, whenever you want to read it, you have to use this password every time. If you put the password one time to read it, so you can do that. Now next one is concatenating the two data sets. It means appending the two data sets, adding the two data sets. We can use a proc data sets browser for that also. Append base data. So you have to use a force. Same thing. So why all these things, right? So because instead of doing appending one time, copy one time, moving like deleting one time, instead of doing individually, all access can be done at a time in one particular process. That is called as a dataset processor. Aging the SAS process, so ODS output. So it means you can change, you can put the output separately. Yeah, so these are some advanced topics. So advanced things. So I think that's enough. Whatever the things majorly, those are things we can use it. Well, once you are clear on that, you can go to these advanced topics. So otherwise you will be confusing with the new these advanced things. So what are the things we discussed? Those are the basic things that you are going to use in a day-to-day life in real time. So not beyond that we can't go. So means even I not use it all these things. So those are the regular things so that we can our task will be easy. Okay. And the next one we are going to discussing is format. Yesterday we started, right? So the format procedure is majorly used to format the data, how you are going to write the data. So simply this format procedure is nothing but if then condition. If this is a value, what you want. If this is a value, what you want, how you want to write it. Simply, you can think. So those things you can do with the proc format procedure. So why we use the proc format? If you can do it with if condition, you'll also get question. Because when you use if condition everywhere, wherever you want it, you have to write the if condition in all the wherever you want it. Because if you want to do some if this is the value is there, then I want to replace this one. This action can be done when all the wherever you want it. You have to write the same line in all the data set wherever you want it. But with the procs or proc format procedure, the same operation, if you write it and store the value and reuse that whatever the stored value wherever you want it. Means just give them some name, like a simple example means you have some program that for that particular program you are giving some name. So wherever you want it, you can use that particular program in your to get the output whenever you want it. Suppose if you don't save it and if you don't execute it, if you don't save it somewhere, every time you want to call that particular program and write it and execute it. So instead of writing complete name, you can get a small name. Like, so that kind of thing. So you can do that. Let's see here how it will be used in here. In Sas. So I have the class dataset here. Now let's say this is a dataset I have. Here you can see there is a variable called sex. So here you have the short codes, male and female, like that kind of thing. But I want a complete name. So at the dataset level, if you write if condition, if then so you can get it. But yeah, so you can get it. So like we created some variable and we called it. But suppose suppose this is a data set we have, but after some writing the code, you may also require sometime another data, other program, another part of the program. You want to do the same action. Then again, you have to copy these statements and use those, you paste it there and run it. Instead of doing like this, we can create a one format and do that operation. How you can create the format means, if the value of the, if in my data set, the particular variable, if the value is f, I want to replace with female. If the value is m, I want to replace with male. So like how we can use it means, see, proc format value dollar. I'm creating called format called gender. Just giving the name. What you want? M is there. I want to see male. Just run it. So you have created a format called gender with these assumptions, with these values. Now run it. When you run it, there is a format gender has been output. You can go to the work location and see that. And see there is a gender format which just now created. So it means if you specify the library, it will store a particular library. If you don't specify it, by default it goes to the work library. Now, I don't want to do all the things now. Here I just use a gender. Use a put function. Now you remember that put function. Now what is the variable here? It's a sex variable. What is the format that you have? Gender. It's a character format, right? Gender character dot. So that's it. So it will created the new variable and the format, the what is the existing variable that you have it, that variable, the format will be applied and stored. Let's see this now. See? So like this, you can create n number of formats here, n number of things. Like nothing but you can create the state codes, You can have any procedure codes, any diagnosis codes, any kind of thing. You can create this thing and save it here. So now once I saved it here, wherever you want it, just use this format. That's it. Automatically it will do the if then else condition kind of thing and will replace those values. So this is very powerful in real time, especially in clinical time. This is very powerful because this formats will be created one time or refreshed monthly once or something, and this can be used all the people who are working in the project. Everybody can access it. It means at the project level it will be unique. Whenever you are generating any report, if you apply the format, that will the results will be unique. It will not be changed. Suppose if you write if condition suppose if you do some extra spaces and blanks thing, you will be it will be error. Any calculations means when you create at the project level, if you use it, the results, the output will come in a unique way. So and also it will be very powerful. Like you can copy some one environment to another environment like these formats. This called as a catalog. Here, this format we call as a catalog file. It's called as format catalog. So any questions in this format one? Because it's very important. So they will ask the question, what is the use of format? So it means you can use that simply we can call it as by how to they will ask the question how you can create a user defined format. So here gender is a user defined format name. So by using the proc format, you can create your own format or user defined formats. Okay. Yeah. So I'll stop here and we'll continue maybe tomorrow. So if possible, I will come tomorrow. Otherwise, will continue next day, the day after tomorrow. So maybe I have some plans today tomorrow, but as of now, it's not fixed here. So we'll meet on next day. It means on Thursday. Is that okay? Yeah, go ahead. What's your doubt? Yeah, definitely it will be helpful. So to create some graph, suppose it means you may need to use some generate the graphs to see some kind of graphical reports because we till now we are not discussed about these graphs. Suppose you receive the data, you may want to do some analysis because so maybe tomorrow maybe the day after tomorrow you will see some like a couple of procedures that will be very useful for your any sector because how it will means like you want to do some calculation like you want to see some average of this particular sales like all the and you want to generate some graphs like a pie chart bar chart by using this data, right? So you may require to generate the graphs, you may require to some reports kind of thing, you may need to some calculation point of view, you may need to because before generating the graph you need to have data, but to create the data you need to do all the things, right? So it will be useful not only industrial sector like any sector anyway. Okay. Yeah. So we'll meet maybe not tomorrow. So the next day, Thursday, we'll meet again. Is that okay? Yep. We'll meet on Thursday. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.